When architect Daniel Burnham meticulously laid out the geography of Chicago about 100 years ago, he said, "Make no small plans." Today, urban planners working in his tradition are still trying hard to design the perfect community, as Rita Braver shows us now in our cover story.
Our house is a very, very, very fine house.
At first glance, it looks like a snapshot of an old-fashioned city. A mix of houses, schools, shops, and cafes, all within an easy stroll.
Well, Main Street's the heart of the community. It's where the neighbors hang out. There's a family that lives upstairs, a Greek family, that runs the restaurant.
But 20 years ago, none of this was here. Kentlands in suburban Maryland is a town built from scratch. Town architect Mike Watkins.
Kentlands is 352 acres and about 2,200 residential units. About a third multifamily, a third townhouses, and a third singles in rough numbers.
There are rental apartments too, and lots of shared green space. The governing principle is simple.
Many of us would prefer walking to driving. So it was deliberately designed as a counterpoint to that, to offer an alternative to driving absolutely everywhere.
In fact, Kentlands is just one example of a movement that's been dubbed New Urbanism.
Yes, this is it, my hometown.
Why is there a need for new style urban communities?
Well, essentially the suburbs have crashed. You know, the promise of suburban living was not fulfilled. You don't get nature, you get a little lawn. You don't get the freedom to drive everywhere, you get traffic congestion.
Andreas Duani and his wife, Elizabeth Plater-Zyberk, are the leading lights of the new urban movement, working out of their firm, DPZ, based in Miami.
We take these things that developers are doing, usually badly, in a sprawling way, and we assemble them into towns.
They have designed several hundred new communities all over the world. Most famous is Florida's Seaside.
Good morning!
Morning!
A town so seemingly perfect, it was the backdrop for The Truman Show, a movie about a man who lived his life on the set of a TV show. But Seaside is a real accomplishment. Time magazine called it the most astounding design achievement of its era. I've seen the word utopia put on some of the places that you create. Do you like to think of them as little utopias?
I think they're part of the utopian dream, which has been long part of life in the United States.
Americans have been pursuing perfection for generations. In the 18th and 19th centuries, there were many religious and spiritual utopian communities, including the Amana colonies in Iowa and Shaker villages in New York and elsewhere. Even the first suburbs were part of the search for utopia, an attempt to flee the grit of some big cities.
The center of the city was getting almost unlivable. You had factories and manufacturing and all this dirty stuff next to people's houses. And so the wealthiest people started moving out to the edges.
Witold Rybczynski is an architect and professor of urbanism at the University of Pennsylvania. He's also author of a new book about development.
It's the last harvest, which is, of course, a harvest of green.
Rybczynski says that if farms must give way to development, at least towns like Seaside and Kentlands are a welcome improvement over typical tract housing.
We're becoming more sophisticated. We appreciate design. Whether it's, old-fashioned or not, it's still design, and it's something that's changed in this country.
And it's not just design that seems to attract residents to places like Kentlands. It's also the sense of community.
People take care of each other's dogs and kids, and
we all
it's
to
amazing.
Each other's houses.
Yeah.
Was it that way in the places that you lived before?
Absolutely not for me.
So as satisfied as people who choose to live in communities like this one say they are, there's just one little problem. They're in a distinct minority.
If you poll the average American citizen, their goal is to have, for the most part, a single-family house with a yard around it. That's still the American dream.
Jerry Howard, CEO of the National Home Builders Association, says that today, nearly 2/3 of Americans still aspire to the traditional suburban home. But as baby boomers age, Howard predicts attitudes will change.
They've mowed all the lawns that they want to mow. They want to come back in. They want to be close to things. They don't want the hassle of taking care of a single-family house.
But there's been plenty of criticism of places like Kentlands and Seaside. Sometimes people say, look, these are fake towns.
I don't see how people can say that places where so many people live real lives, you know, real lives with real jobs and real kids and real problems and real successes. The arrogance of people saying they're not real places, you know, it's just astounding.
But utopia or not, Professor Rybczynski says Americans will never give up their freedom to sprawl.
We're much too unruly. You know, there are going to be strip malls, and there are going to be big box stores, and all these things are not just going to go away. And it's going to be a mixture of these things, as it's always been.
In other words, it's just what the American dream has always promised: the chance to pursue your own idea of utopia.
Coming up, a clean sweep. And talk about a big wheel.